You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is BRFM, the island's very own local radio station. I'm Daniel, and now it's time to review the interview I did with Ian Goodwin from the Sheppey Coastguard. And of course, I catch up with Ian once every couple of months on the Daniel Monday Night Community Show. And this is what Ian had to say when I spoke to him. So, Ian, what does a coastguard get up to?
Well, as a volunteer coastguard, we provide the UK's coastal search and rescue capability as part of Her Majesty's Coastguard, and it can operate separately or jointly with other emergency services and volunteer rescue organisations. It consists of a team of volunteers, which we call a Coastguard Rescue Team, a CRT, who are drawn from the local community, who are fully trained and equipped to carry out search and rescue operations around the coast of the UK. Now, as a volunteer in one of these Coastguard, the Sheppey Coastguard Rescue Team, I think we play a vital role in helping the Maritime and Coastguard Agency to achieve its vision of being a world-class organisation that is committed to preventing loss of life, improving maritime safety and protecting the marine environment. Now, members of the Coastguard Rescue Service are called Coastguard Rescue Officers, or CROs as I am, and it is entirely voluntary. And we can be called out by the Maritime Rescue Coordination Centres at any time of the day or night, in all weathers, to respond to those in trouble or missing, to seek confirmation or further information of a report, or to participate in a joint response to an emergency. Now, here are the things which I've actually and my colleagues have been up to, basically, in the last sort of 12 months. We've carried out rescues of those trapped or injured on cliff or in mud and provided a water rescue capability. We've carried out searches for missing persons, often in conjunction with the police. We've carried out coastal and inshore surveillance. We've provided emergency mobile communication, including relay and remote radio site operation. We've provided an incident response and on-sea coordination as required by the rescue centre. We've reported the presence of pollution or other hazardous objects on the shore. So we've dealt with bombs, incendiary devices. We've carried out duties as required by the receiver of wreck, particularly with fish royale, the recovery of porpoises, dolphins, that type of fish. We've assisted local authorities and other emergency services when requested in conjunction to counter pollution, flood relief, missing person searches and others. And we've actually carried out accident prevention and safety education activities and specifically targeted prevention initiatives. So we actually get involved in quite a lot. And when I come on to the incidents tonight, I'll just focus in a bit on one of those aspects, which is mud rescue.
And I know, Ian, now we're going to do some safety advice.
Yes, I've got lots of things I could say, but I'm going to make it more pertinent to the weather conditions and the season that we're in. And the first thing I want to talk about is life jackets and buoyancy aids. Now, recreational sailors and motorboaters should wear life jackets at all times. They should be well maintained and should have a spray hood light and whistle if possible. And they must ensure that their life jacket has a crotch strap and that they use it. If you don't do that, the likely thing is it'll go over your head. If you are a canoeist, a rower, a dinghy sailor and the like, you should really wear a buoyancy aid as recommended by their sports national governing body. Anglers who fish on their own close to the water's edge and from an unstable platform should wear a life jacket or buoyancy aid, and commercial fishermen should wear a personal flotation device or lifeline whilst working on the deck or vessel at sea. The next thing is a little bit about alcohol. The sea and alcohol do not mix. We advise against setting out to sea if you have been or are drinking alcohol. If you have been drinking, your judgment will be impaired and you are more likely to make mistakes, which at sea could be very life-threatening. And alcohol does play a contributory factor in a significant number of maritime deaths every year. Dog walkers. Stay away from cliff edges. Our cliff edges, as my Deputy Station Officer Tim Judge pointed out on the Meridian News last week, are very, very unstable. And we've had a lot of rain this last year, and they are crumbling. And they can be very slippery when wet, And always keep your dog on a lead near the cliff. Do not attempt to rescue a dog which is being swept out to sea by yourself. This is because you are likely to get into difficulty, and many dogs return to the shore alive, but some owners do not. Excuse me. Call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. Now make sure if you are walking along those, or you're a cliff or coastal user, that you're properly equipped for walking. In particular, remember to wear sturdy shoes or boots, and check the weather forecast before you go out. And if you're going along the shore, the tide. Do not attempt to climb up and down the cliffs, and do not attempt to climb cliffs as a shortcut to the top, and do not attempt self-rescue. If you get into difficulty, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. One of the things which I will be focusing in when I do the incidents this evening is mud. If you become stuck in mud, try to spread your weight as much as possible. If you have a mobile phone, call 999 and ask for the Coast Guard. Avoid moving and stay as calm as you can. Discourage others from attempting to rescue, since without the proper equipment they become stuck as well. And one of the incidents I will talk about is 2 other persons went to rescue someone and they got actually stuck as well. So the final couple of things is, what do we do? I mean, well, we do a lot of cliff rescues, and although the dangers of getting too close to the edge of the cliff might seem obvious, we as a Sheppey team are nevertheless regularly summoned to the aid of persons and animals who have fallen or are often injured. Now, we are trained and equipped to extricate the casualty as safely as possible for medical treatment. Sadly, sometimes our role is to recover those who have not survived their fall. And the final thing in terms of the safety is mud rescue. The perils of soft mud and quicksand around Sheppey may be less obvious to the unwary, but they can be just as deadly. Now, we have specialised equipment and training for freeing casualties and bringing them to safety to firm ground. And I can't emphasise this so much. You mustn't go out on these mud around Sheppey, because you're going to get caught out. And about a week ago, an individual did, and he nearly died. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Thank you, Daniel. So let's come on to the actual incidents itself. They're all mud. They occurred from the last time we've seen one another. We've had 3 incidents, all involving a mud rescue. The first one was just before Christmas, in fact a couple of weeks before Christmas, which involved a mud rescue of a man and 2 girls off Laysdown on sea. My colleagues actually got down there and in the nick of time, and managed to get the man and the 2 girls out using our mud rescue equipment, and they're very safe and sound and didn't require any medical attention. And then whilst I was enjoying myself on the ski slopes of Bulgaria, the Coast Guard rescue team of Sheppey undertook some very arduous cliff rescues a week ago, this weekend just gone. And the first one was on the Saturday, and it was a woman and a 10-year-old son who suffered from hypothermia after being trapped in the location near Minster Cliffs. Now, a passing cyclist called 999 just before 3 p.m. on Saturday, saying the pair were stuck in the mud off Marine Parade, Sheerness. So the Sheerness, and supported by Medway Coast Guard rescue teams, were sent together with firefighters, police and ambulance. Now there was a Coast Guard did actually search the seafront from the Catholic Church Broadway before the mother and son were eventually spotted at Oak Point by a police helicopter. Now, due to the difficulty of access for the vehicles, the police helicopter landing on the cliff top, whilst my colleagues used lines with the firefighters to bring the 2 people up the cliff and into the care of the ambulance. Now, both were taken to the Medway Maritime Hospital, suffering from hypothermia around 5 p.m. And again, it just goes to show, keep away from this mud. And then, lo and behold, 24 hours later, a teenager was rescued after getting stuck up to his chest in mud, and he was visiting a spot where his grandfather's ashes were scattered. And now this is being reported in the local paper, and there's a whole page in actual fact on the front of the Coast Guard rescue helicopter, right, actually rescuing this individual. The irony is he'd just returned from a 2-week survival trip in the Amazon, but obviously, unfortunately for him, he wasn't trained in how to get out of the mud, so he got right up into this mud. He'd walked from his home in Clyde Street to Minster Cliffs on Sunday morning, and where he started to sink into the clay about midday. And it took almost 7 hours before he was released from the freezing mud and taken to hospital. Now, this chap was stuck for 2 hours before a 13-year-old boy and a 21-year-old man heard his cries. Now, attempting their own rescue, which was unfortunate, as I've pointed out earlier on this evening, the pair also got stuck in the mud up to their ankles near Seacliff Caravan Park, but managed to alert a pair of nearby dog walkers. Now, my colleagues actually, with the assistance of the fire service, extracted this individual, but he was airlifted to Southend Hospital at about 7 p.m. and he only had cuts and bruises, and he managed to stay calm. His 2 helpers were also taken to hospital for precautionary checks, and he was particularly released at 9:30. Now, my deputy station officer described it as arduous, and he was on the Meridian News along with the fire service, just pointing out about the dangers of mud. And here we are, just since I've last been here, 3 mud rescues, and each and every one of them, if there hadn't been a rescue service, a Coast Guard rescue service, they would have died.